Alright, well, my name is Joe, and these are my two friends, Mike.
Yo.
And Nick.
Hey.
And welcome to our first ever episode of GoodGriefz. Anyway, this was one of the first servers we ever griefed, and we had to make an episode of it because it was just so bad. And the server that I found was hosted by this decently popular website called videogamenostalgia.com, and it had a pretty big following on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook. But I go on the server anyway, and the spawn looks nice, and of course it's protected. So I'm about to leave when this girl, Aricia, who, I mean, I'm sure you guys all know somebody like this that's in the Minecraft server, but she's just bitching and bothering everyone. She's like, "Hi! Come look at my house!" So I'm like, okay. So she leads me to this town right off a spawn, and it's not protected. None of it. And then her and the mod are talking, and they're basically talking about how nothing in the entire server is protected besides the spawn, and I'm like, oh, f***. So immediately I call the boys, Mike and Nick, and I'm like, alright, let's do this. So while I'm waiting for them, I'm establishing myself as a member of the server, and I start talking to the mod, and of course the mod's introducing these faction plugins. And factions are like these clans, and if you're not in that person's faction, then you can't touch their shit, which kind of make things really difficult. But then she creates the factions, and they create one, and almost everyone joins that same one. It just really just defeats their whole f***ing purpose of doing this. So of course I join that one, and then I start gathering supplies to just wreck this whole faction. Hold on, I need a sidebar real quick. You see, we're not like other griefing teams where we have mods and shit, you know, like X-Ray, and we can dig super fast. Like, I don't know, I think we believe in like a fair fight, you know? We go into a server, we gain people's trust, we infiltrate the ranks, and then we just destroy everything from within, you know? Like
The Departed.
Well, I mean, kind of.
Wait, well then I want to be Matt Damon.
Well, if he's Matt Damon, I want to be Leo.
It's not...
You know, f***ing cop.
Wait, so you're Mark Wahlberg now? Did we change characters?
Guys, come on!
So, anyway, Mike and I get in the server. And these two other guys made their own factions, so Mike and I decided to go check on those. My guy ended up being a total f***ing moron, who really did nothing. So I left and joined Joe's.
Mine wasn't much better. I mean, it was just this one guy, and he was like, give me one reason why I should let you in my clan. So I was like, I'm a hard worker. And he was like, okay. So then he continued to build this huge tower, and I went to gather supplies to knock it down after he left.
So this Aricia girl is getting f***ing crazier by the minute. You know, granted, she's letting me crash in her really shitty house, but she has these crazy caps locks, like, outbursts, like, I love you! And like, we're best friends! But like, not in the good way. Oh, and she f***ing follows me everywhere. Like here, for example, look, I'm just going to this house, I'm scoping it out to grief later, and then wham, she's like right behind me. She's like Ghost. She's like Patrick Swayze in Ghost. She's like Patrick Swayze in, like, real life, you know, and by now, Mike's guys left the server, and so Mike's just tearing down this guy's entire tower, and Nick and I are like, Mike, we want to grief too, and Mike's like, fine, I found this one other town by spawn, we might as well knock it out while we're waiting for everyone to sign off for the night. So we all meet at this town, and we just start ripping it apart, and I'm talking like everything. And we're a little jumpy because we keep glancing at the chat, where randomly Aricia and the other people will shout these random trigger words like, what the f***? And like, oh shit. But, you know, it never actually has anything to do with us. So again, we're just plowing this town to the ground, and we get to this huge castle, which is like the centerpiece of this entire town. And all of a sudden the mod signs on, and he's like, Nick. And Nick's like, yeah? And he's like, is that your house? And Nick's like, yeah? And he's like, oh, okay. And then he just signs off. We never hear from this guy again. So we're getting to the end of just destroying this bitch, and we forgot that we can't touch these stupid chests or furnaces in this server, you know? Like, we can't touch them, we can't destroy them. So what we do is we start building these natural-looking hills, like, all over everything, and, you know, we're planting trees, and we're filling in all these ditches with, like, water to make, like, man-made lakes, just really removing any evidence that that town was ever there. And this way, the mod can't pinpoint the location he needs to roll back, you know, just making this grief completely permanent. And also we do this thing where we plant trees all over where we grief. Not only does it add to the natural effect, but there's this glitch in the rollback system where you can't roll back trees. So even if they undo all of our griefing, the house still looks like this. So we finish up here, and it looks so fucking different. We basically forgot where we were griefing, and we're like, let's just get out of here. We go back to spawn, and we're messing around in spawn, and then all of a sudden, I destroy something, and it stays like that. And I'm like, oh my god. Not even spawn's really all that protected. I was like, we gotta come back here. But first, I lead them back into the main faction town, where everyone's still there, but I'm like, you know what, I know this kid Bosco isn't here. I was hacking out his house earlier. So we start from the back, because like Auricia's just still like wandering around, and we basically turn this kid's huge, elaborate farm into what's now probably a tree island. And we're about to start on this house when all of a sudden we hear, "What the f*** are you doing?" And Auricia's just like right there all over us, and we're like, ah, jig is up, and we all just start running in different directions. Like, you know, we know our days are numbered now.
So then I run back to my faction's tower that I was working on earlier and completely obliterated. I mean, and when I'm done, I look around and I realize that I've destroyed every block this kid has ever laid in this server. And I mean every single block. The rage quit this kid is going to have when he signs back in is inevitable.
Meanwhile, Nick and I flee back to one of the few remaining houses that hasn't been touched in this server yet, and we just start ripping it apart. We know it belongs to a mod, so Nick's starting on the roof, and I'm just like running around the house, and I think I'm just gonna start from the bottom. And I go in the basement, and the entire floor is made of fucking diamond blocks. So I just start ripping up these diamond blocks, and I call the boys, of course, and I start divvying the stacks on stacks on stacks of diamonds we have between us. I mean, we make diamond weapons, diamond tools, diamond armor, diamond everything. If we weren't unstoppable before, we're definitely unstoppable now. So now with our newfound diamond instruments, you know, we tear this fucking mansion down in a matter of minutes, and by the time we're done, it's wall-to-wall trees, and what used to be the basement is now a lake. And of course, Auricia is just going crazy this entire time. So we're like, you know what? F it, let's just continue where we left off. We go back to Bosco's house. Guess who's there? Bosco. And he's pretty pissed. And, I mean, he's definitely pissed that we showed back up to finish our job of destroying his entire virtual life. But, like, you have to realize, there's no PvP on this server. There's no mods, so we're just destroying this kid's house right in front of him. The only problem is, as fast as we're destroying this, he's making his own faction and kind of just protecting parts of the house. And, you know, eventually we run into this thing where half the house is destroyed and half the house is protected, so we have to get creative. So we start digging like upside down crosses on his lawn. We're leaving annoying signs everywhere.
A giant boys billboard in the sky.
With trees, because fuck you, that's why.
You know, like, this is just stupid. We're like, they could at least be creating flint and steel or lava buckets to like slow us down or kill us, and then we're like, hold on, ellipses, we could be doing that. So we start tearing apart Bosco's driveway, which is just all gravel, and we start making flint and steel, and we literally start lighting Bosco and Auricia on fire, and we're just chasing them around with these lighters for like, I don't know how long. And by the time we're done, his entire island's on fire, and they've kind of like taken protection in like the nearby river. And we're laughing so hard we can barely play this game anymore. And Bosco's, what I'm assuming, is just crying, and Auricia is not far from behind him because we just dove into the river and started like slaughtering all of her dogs that were following her around. And we see them trying to sort of protect this mod's house behind them, so we go over there and we start destroying that, and they're trying to sneak up behind us, but then Mike turns around and makes this huge line of fire so they can't get back onto land. And then this is where things got kind of crazy. Like, I mean, we've destroyed a lot of stuff, but we've never broken kids like this. Bosco all of a sudden just starts like signing in and out, and he's talking just like crazy. He's like, I don't care, everything's gonna get rolled back. And then he got like weird and mean, and he's like, I don't care, you know what I'm doing right now? I'm f***ing your mothers. And we're like, you know what, Bosco, you're not actually f***ing our mothers, but we're actually f***ing your house right now. And then Auricia goes crazy too, and she's this huge emotional breakdown. She's like, I've been lying to the whole server. She's like, I'm not actually a girl, I'm a guy. And we're like, what the f***? And like, you know, no sooner does the mod come on and he sees all of this destruction, all this crazy, and he's like, what the f***? And then obviously we were kicked out of the server. But here's the thing, like all good griefs, the story's not over. Obviously Mike, Nick, and I have our chuckles about this, and then Mike signs off, and then Nick signs off, but I can't go to bed because I'm curious. So I go on my other account because, come on, do you think we all just have one account? And I try to get onto the server, and it's just completely disconnected. I'm like, that's weird. And I try to get on the next day, and the day that follows that, and it's still disconnected. And then eventually later that week I get on, and I'm looking around for stuff that we destroyed, and it's not only not destroyed, but it's just not there at all. It's just all natural environment. And I talked to one of the mods, I'm like, what happened? And he's like, oh my god, we were trying this rollback thing. And he's like, and I didn't know we had to stop the rollback. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it rolled back like, not only before the grief, he's like, but like weeks and weeks back, like if not months and months. And I was like, oh my god. And he's like, yeah, the only thing that's here anymore is just spawn. He's like, everything is gone. And I was like, oh my god. And I'm about to sign off, but then Bosco signs on. And this kid's just fuming. And he's like, what do you mean I can't get my ass back? And he's like, I'm sorry, Bosco. And he's like, Gah! And he goes on and he explains that that very same night, his Xbox was hacked too. And he thinks that the three of us did that too. And he thinks that we're like completely out to get this kid. And I'm just laughing so hard. I have to sign off. I sign back on a few weeks later, and it's just even worse now. You know, they have like their own private server, and then they have this guest build, but nobody's joining this stupid guest build. It's just retarded. So they'll never get like another, like, they'll never get any more of a following for that server. And then somewhere between all these times where I'm checking back on the server, Nick sends me this article that they published on like their website and their Tumblr. And it goes on and on about like the terrible griefing experience that they had with us. And they've decided, you know what, enough's enough. We're going to release a master grief list. And then people can just like put all the names of griefers and stuff. And guess who were the first three names on the list? Yeah, that's right. Me, Mike, and Nick. And you know, granted, it's been shared like hundreds of times because they're such like a popular website. But there's millions and millions of Minecraft servers out there, you know, and from future notice, like, we've had no trouble griefing after this. So really, they've kind of just put us on, like, the Hall of Fame of griefing. And, you know, we're all honored, and it was pretty awesome. And that is the story of video game nostalgia.